Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification Course. My name is Mr. Kraus. You can be seated wherever you are. Thank you for joining us, both here at the Peaceful Solution headquarters and online. It's great to have you again. I know it's very hot. Of course, what do we expect? Here we are in Texas. If you're in Argentina watching right now, it's probably very cold. Wherever you are, strap yourself in, enjoy yourself, and let's get ready to learn let's get ready for another power-packed hour. When I say power-packed, it's not because I'm teaching it, it's because the Peaceful Solution, remember, knowledge is power, okay? So whenever you're learning from the Peaceful Solution, you're going to get a heavy dose of power to make better decisions, power to avoid negative influences, negative choices, and power to live, because that's what the Peaceful Solution is all about. It's about teaching us, to make better choices so we can live, and not, like the road less traveled talked about, join the dead, dying, and the sick. We don't need to do that. We can avoid those traps, and we can teach others to do the same through moral character education, as we're learning here in the Peaceful Solution program. Okay, so we left off in Chapter 5, Responding to Disrespect, and Chris had left off on page 139, where it says one more thing about bullying. Thought the teachers did an excellent job of Chris did an excellent job last class, I noticed, of taking us through this story about bullying in schools, about the young man in Washington State. Gave us a lot of great background information on the young boy. I think he was 14. And that was really enlightening, because we really do need to understand why people act the way they do, or why they act out the way they do. A lot of times we just take it for granted. We read a news story and it says boy walks into school with gun, shoots person, and then it talks about all the mayhem and all the people responding to the disaster that just took place, but very little is known about the shooter himself, his family, his background, his upbringing, his mental condition, etc. And all these things are needful for us to understand why people do the things they do. And Chris showed us, all the different examples of what that boy was going through at the time that nobody would have known about, had they not researched it like the Peaceful Solution does. We're not just here to tell stories and, for likes on Facebook, or, what do they call that? For glorification purposes of blood and gore and etc. We're here to educate people on why people, how people could have avoided those choices they actually made, had that boy been offered the help that he needed. As Chris said, all the help came after he got in trouble. Then everybody got interested in his life. But before that is when he needed it the most, and no one was there. So we need to keep those things in mind when we see these things take place. There's plenty of school shootings still going on. They haven't disappeared. I haven't seen any statistics lately, but I'm sure there's plenty of them that you hear about and that you don't hear about. A lot of times you have to remember, schools tend to sweep these incidents under the rug because they really don't want a bad reputation for their school or the school district. And like Chris said, in the last class, sometimes even suicides are brushed aside or brushed off, hidden, so people don't, they think that person just left town or whatever. So that way, it doesn't hurt anyone's feelings or stir any emotions with the children or parents, and it doesn't make their school look bad, quote unquote. And I got a lot of respect for school counselors, because school counselors really do, all the ones we've ever dealt with, they really try their best, but their hands are tied when it comes to character education. They know the children need it. They want to teach it, but the state of Texas and these other states require so much academics being taught, that, really basically teachers are only teaching children to pass the next test, whether it be math or science, social studies, etc. But the biggest test in life comes when somebody comes up to you and starts pushing your buttons. That's a test too. Nobody prepares them for those tests, except the peaceful solution. So, the school counselors really know how important it is, better than anyone else in their realm of educational learning. And that's why they always try to provide the opportunity for peaceful solution to come in their school, and even if it's just for 45 minutes, to give them a lesson on responding to disrespect, because that one lesson could make a difference in life or death for a child, and how to solve a problem that they might be facing. And if you don't get the lesson, if you don't get the information, how can you consider something you've never been told? How can you stop and think, as the peaceful solution teaches us, how can you stop, think, and consider options that you're not aware of, that you don't know you have in a situation? That's where education is so important, and enlightens the mind to help us know what we can do in any given situation. So he covered bullying in schools. He also covered, bullying in general. On page 135, I'm kind of recapping a little bit here. On page 135, he talked about, or 134, he talked about bullies in general. How bullying can take the form of verbal abuse, physical abuse, stealing, and destruction of property. Okay, and he went over that, but he also showed us on page 135. He took a closer look at humility and how important being humble and taking on that positive character trait of humility can actually be used to diffuse the situation. As we were taught in the self-control unit, for instance. In chapter 3, in the anger chapter, it talked about ways that we can deal with anger, and one of them was to draw from your positive character traits. Think of your positive character traits as tools that you have for a job. Humility is a tool that you can use in a situation, where you can say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Or, even if you're not wrong, it's okay to say you're sorry to try to diffuse the situation. You can just say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry I got in your way. Sorry I didn't mean to, offend you like that. Please forgive me. Those are powerful tools, it says, that you can use to diffuse situations. Okay, that's called humility. Those are, I think David would tell you, he knows a lot about tools for the job, being in the car trade. You don't need every tool for every job, I mean, you don't pull out the hammer to fix the carburetor. I don't know. Some people might. I don't know. They might have to beat it into shape. I haven't seen one do it. I'm not a mechanic, but I don't think they need a crowbar, to take the engine, to fix the gas tank. Or I'm kind of struggling because I'm not a mechanic, but there's certain tools you don't use, okay, for certain jobs. But, you grab the right tool. And humility is a huge tool when it comes to solving problems that you're having with somebody that are escalating. When somebody's trying to push your buttons, trying to get a reaction, calling you names, possibly calling you something very offensive, which I witnessed just the other day in a public place. I witnessed somebody calling someone a name that would actually get them killed in places on this earth, that would actually get them killed if they said it. But because the person that was involved practices the peaceful solution character education program, that didn't occur. He didn't get a reaction. Okay? Now, remember, not everybody's learning the peaceful solution character education program. But if you're here right now and you're learning the peaceful solution, you have an obligation, a moral obligation, to diffuse that situation yourself. And I watched this person do it. Okay, I watched this person do it. I watched him, and he handled it very well. Okay? But be on guard, because is that going to be the last time that's going to take place? I know. You know, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to exercise your humility muscle. Okay? Which, let's look at it here. Let's read about humility, because I think that's so important that we have this character trait. Remember, it's one of the positive character traits. On page 135, it says, humility is a positive character trait. A humble person has the ability to sacrifice being right in order to avoid a confrontation. Being humble should never be confused with being weak. It's not being weak. You're actually strong. What I witnessed the other day took a lot of moral strength. It didn't take muscles, In fact, you have to relax your muscles when this takes place, because what that person was being called, you have to relax your tongue and not say anything. You have to relax, try to relax, remain calm in that situation, because if you get all uptight and you start exercising that tongue muscle, it's a big muscle too, There's probably a lot of muscles in your tongue, huh? If he'd have done that and he'd have started spouting back and retaliating in that situation, the way that person was talking to that person, that could have escalated very quickly into something very deadly. Okay? Extremely deadly. Okay? So I was very pleased to see the peaceful solution in action and see how it was able to diffuse that situation, and nobody got hurt physically or verbally. Nothing, Now, the person who was called the name, am I saying that didn't hurt their feelings in some way? Of course it does. Nobody likes to be called names. But I'd rather have my feelings hurt than see a pool of blood and a couple people, laying in blood, or somebody laying there, dying from some kind of wound because somebody didn't practice because both didn't practice self-control in that situation. So, we all going to get our feelings hurt at times, but that's okay. Okay, we can handle it. We're learning how to deal with these things in the peaceful solution. So it says, being humble should never be confused with allowing a bully to take advantage of you or being weak. It takes self-control to stop and consider the best and most effective way to handle a situation. Some situations can become dangerous if you do not respond carefully. In order to prevent making the situation worse, you might need to be humble, apologize, and even walk away. Okay? And so, remember, it says at the bottom of page 135 that bullies disregard the basic rights of others, okay, which is to live in peace, safety, and security. Y'all remember that, right? Everyone has the right to live in peace, safety, and security, and bullies disregard that right that others people have. And think about it. It seems very cruel and fierce to be treated that way by a stranger, somebody that you don't even know, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's, it could be worse when it's your own family member or whatever, I'm sure, but just to have a stranger treat you like that doesn't even know you, it's really, really degrading to people. To have somebody just be talking to you that way and treating you that way, like you're nobody, like you have no value at all. Okay? But they disregard these rights. And remember, are they being taught basic rights? The bully? They're not being taught anything about the peaceful solution, so they don't even know that you have the right to live in peace, safety, and security, and so do they. They don't know it because they can't consider it because they're not being taught. It says, bullies disregard and disrespect the basic rights of others, which is to reach their full potential in an environment that's free from fear and hostility. All environments should be free from fear and hostility. And on page 156, or 136, Chris went over bullying in schools. That's one environment that you don't expect these kind of things to be taking place, right? In schools, school violence. You expect to send your child to school to get an education, not to be bullied and ridiculed and harassed, demeaned. and to the point sometimes of a child going to hang themselves. I mean, it's horrible to see what a child can be driven to. But remember, children are not taught to control their emotions. So when they're dealing with embarrassment, when they're dealing with fear, when they're dealing with hopelessness, remember those are some of the negative character traits, or I'm sorry, negative emotions that chapter 2 of the self-control unit taught us about. Remember, it's not the negative emotion that's the problem, it's uncontrolled negative emotions, okay? And a lot of times children don't even know what emotion they're going through, let alone how to control it. They've never been taught how to control their emotions. So what they do is they just do what they know to do. You know, what they've seen their friends do, what they see on television, or just what their own mind's telling them to do. Okay? They're under their own influence, you know, their own influence of their own thoughts. Okay? So think about it. It might seem to us like, wow, somebody took their life because of that? That's pretty, there's so much, it's a finality, you know, you're actually ending your life. It seems like they should have known better than to do that. But remember, when you're not being taught these things, it's very easy to end your life like that, not knowing what your options are. Okay, so that reminds me, I want to show you a video that we put together, the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program put together. Oh man, when was it? I want to say it was about 2011, 2010, somewhere around there. But it was an example of school bullying and how when we don't use self-control, like I saw used the other day in a situation that was when this person was being called a very rude name. When self-control isn't used, it can lead to things that are much, much worse. So I want to show a clip real quick of, and these are actual Peaceful Solutions students that helped out in this video, the actors and the people in the background as well. So if we could play the video, let's play the second video about the bullying first. Okay, so you can see it seems like a very, you know, you got to remember these things take place quite frequently, okay? So that's not out of the realm of possibility for that to take place right there. It takes place all the time where the school bully not only kills the person that's bullying them or other innocent victims, but even take their own life. In fact, most of the time, the bully himself that's the shooter also ends up losing his own life. Sometimes losing his life, going to prison the rest of his life, or not practicing self-control. And as that showed us in that video, you know, when we don't use that STOP acronym, we don't stop to think and consider how to handle that situation. In fact, in that video, Manuel's mother, you know, the boy that did the shooting, he said, "Manuel, are you okay?" You know, he could have talked to his mother at that. Well, wait a minute. Let me read one more thing and then we'll put up the food for thought next. It says, once you have handled the situation appropriately, let it go. Let it go. Let it go. What's another word for let it go? What's a character trait? Forgiveness, right? Let it go. And it takes self-control to let it go, right? And it takes determination to let it go. Remember, it takes all those other character traits to practice the character trait of forgiveness. I went over that in the last time I was teaching. So it's not that simple, but it is that simple. That's what you have to do. That's what we have to do. Just let it go. It says, when you focus your thoughts on negative situations, you build up hatred and anger that could explode, causing you to hurt others and yourself. Don't become resentful or bear a grudge like we just saw in the video there. Recognize that this person just has not yet learned how to practice a peaceful solution. Well, that's going to be easy for us to do, like I saw the other day. The person that was learning the peaceful solution knew that that person that was doing those things isn't learning the peaceful solution right now. So he could make that connection and he could consider that. But what about the person that's not learning the peaceful solution? What about two people that aren't learning the peaceful solution? Are they going to be able to consider that the other's not learning the peaceful solution? Of course not. You see, this is why it's important that we get this information to all the people, to all the children, to all the adults, to everywhere. If they don't get the information, we're going to continue to see wars being fought all over the world. We're going to be continuing to see divorces taking place in families. We're going to continue to see fights break out on the streets, in the parliaments. Yeah, I see people going to fisticuffs among the politicians. You know, look at some of the parliaments around the world. You know, they get pretty hot and heavy. You know, these guys start yelling at each other, and next thing you know, fists are flying, chairs are flying, words are flying. You know, and these are grown adults. So if the grown adults aren't controlling their emotions, what's the prospects that the children are going to be learning anything positive, right? The children are going to be looking at the adults and they're going to be going, man, I just saw, a bunch of politicians and, this one legislative body, man, they started going at it, man. I guess there's nothing wrong with that. That's how the adults do it. I guess I could probably do that too. Right? This is where they're getting their ideas. They're not just coming up with this stuff on their own. You know, children are remember the monkey see, monkey do mentality? Not that they're monkeys, but they do imitate what they see. All right, so let's put up the slide, food for thought. It says, and by the way, that looks delicious. I love hamburgers and fries. That's like still my best liked meal. So if I start salivating while I'm reading this, I hope I don't get it on my book. Okay, it says, although bullying is most commonly associated with schools, bullying exists in other areas of society as well. For example, bullying can occur in the workplace when domineering men and women bully other adults who are weaker and less powerful. Can we go to the next slide? Just jump ahead so I can show them what the word domineering means, because I'm sure we need to write that in our book. Everybody has a pen and everybody has pens out here. I can see that because we're all learning to be teachers. So you might want to write this word domineering, this definition down, at least the basics of it. Domineering describes a person who is arrogant and bossy, like a military dictator or a supervisor who micromanages everyone at work. You know, they stand over their shoulder every second, and constantly criticizing everything they're doing, and yelling at them and, barking orders and, this and that, They're not really helping them any, but they're, just making them nervous. You know how I know that? Because I'm pretty domineering at one time too. If you want to know what domineering was, ask David. He's one of our instructors that years back, when we made a video, you can leave that domineering up because I want him to see it while I'm talking here about domineering, because I want to admit that I was very domineering at one time as well. But we had just done an award ceremony in 2009 for Peaceful Solutions students, and David had never in his life made a video, and we filmed the ceremony. We filmed the ceremony of the award ceremony, and David went out and he bought a movie maker. It was called Movie Maker. It was some kind of program for his computer, right? And he attempted to make a 1-hour production of this award ceremony we just made. Well, if you want to know what domineering is, David can tell you that I stood over him for 30 days in my living room telling him exactly how to put that video together, okay? And I mean, literally stood over his shoulder for 30 days, 8 hours a day, probably 8 hours plus per day, barking at David, telling him, David, no, take that out. No, that can't be there. No, cut that out. And just constantly, he's like, okay. And I could tell he was like really nervous and really anxious. And I'm thinking, why are you so nervous, man? Right? I'm just thinking I'm being me. Well, I was being me. I was being very domineering. Like to think that I'm not like that anymore, I mean, for the most part, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea. David would be able to tell you about domineering, but he handled it really well and he got it done. But boy, you know, I learned a lot about what domineering was because David told me, hey, you know, you're being very domineering, okay? He did it in a nice way too. But it says domineering, people who are strong-willed and overbearing can be described as domineering, like customers in a restaurant who demand things with snappy fingers. Parents who say sternly to their kids, because I say so, that's why, are speaking in a domineering way. Now get this, this is really interesting. The word domineering comes from the Latin root dominare, to rule or to lord it over. Like to lord it over somebody, to be a lord over somebody, you know, to rule over them, you know, with an iron fist, basically. Not to be helpful in any way, but I mean, they probably think they're being helpful, but it's like they know they want a certain job done, and they think if they're not standing there and they're not micromanaging every little thing somebody's doing, that it's not going to get done right. Right? But that's not how we need to be. We need to let people grow. We need to give people room, back off, give them room to grow, give them space to breathe. You know, and I wasn't doing that in that situation, and I learned very early on, you've really got to back off. You've really got to allow people to grow. And David did an excellent job on that video, man. That was one of the best video productions I've ever seen an amateur do, okay? And I haven't seen many amateur videos, but I can tell you that was a really great job that he did, especially under the pressure I put him under. Okay, now let's go back to page 139, now that you know my history of domineering. So, remember, we're talking about bullying, because we've all bullied people in different ways. Okay, let's just admit it. Let's just admit we all have a past. That's why I will tell you about things in the past in my life so you can understand I'm human too, and I was that way, and I recognize those things so you can understand, you know, how far the peaceful solution helps us to overcome if we'll use it. Okay? But we can also look back and see how we were at one time and evaluate our progress by our behavioral changes. That's how you know a program works. It's by the behavioral changes you see in your students. And that's why I said the other day when I witnessed what I did with somebody barking at somebody and calling them names that possibly could have got that person killed by someone else, I saw with my own eyes the behavioral changes in that person and how the peaceful solution, how effective it actually is, because that person used what he was taught. Now, what if he'd have just thrown out everything he'd learned and just let his emotions run wild and did whatever he felt like doing? That could have ended up pretty bad, okay? But you know, the peaceful solution in that situation saves somebody's life possibly, or at least saves somebody from being assaulted or seriously injured, and possibly even more people, because there was other people in the area. So, bullying can occur in the workplace. Can you put the slide back up on domineering? Food for thought. Okay, food for thought, actually. Okay, so bullying can occur in the workplace when domineering men and women bully other adults who are weaker and less powerful. Older siblings bully younger siblings. Let's go to that slide where we see the boy giving what they call an Indian rub to his sister there. Now that was when we were growing up, that's what we would do to bully each other. You know, we'd grab somebody and rub on their head real hard, you know, scratch on their skull, you know, until it got really almost bleeding, you know, and the person's like, I give up. You'd make them say uncle, or however we did it, you know, say uncle and I'll let you go. You know, this is the kind of things that take place, okay? And it's cruel. It's actually cruel, you know. It hurts. I can see the pain in that little girl's face, you know, that that's her brother picking on his little sister, okay? And, you know, brothers and sisters tend to forgive one another afterwards, you know. It's kind of like, he's my brother. It's kind of like, well, I expect that he's my brother, you know. My brothers and sisters do that kind of stuff, right? Wrong. That's called disrespect. That boy should not have his arm around her neck, you know, feigning like he's choking her, nor should he have his knuckles rubbing into her skull. Okay, that's not showing any kind of moral character whatsoever right there. It's showing immoral character. It's bringing harm, it's bringing physical harm, and it's bringing mental and emotional stress on this young lady. Okay, so that can't be something moral taking place there. And the tendency is to think that that's what brothers and sisters do. Okay, but that's not true. That's what brothers and sisters do that haven't been taught moral character, that haven't been taught any better. But that's not what Peaceful Solution students would do to one another. Now back to the food for thought slide. Back to food for thought, okay? It says older siblings bully younger siblings and children bully their pets. Let's put up the next slide and show you, get a couple examples of bullying pets. You know, putting the cat in the microwave, or, you know, putting the frog in the freezer. You know, hey, look, there is some frogs that would survive being put in the freezer. You know, there's the wood frog. You know, the wood frog, did you know though, the wood frog, you can freeze a wood frog for up to 8 months. It has, it actually, I can't say it because we're in this is a family-friendly class, but a certain thing that usually comes out when they go to the bathroom, it actually stays in their body and it becomes antifreeze. And when they freeze, when the winter comes and they actually freeze, what's left in their body is like an antifreeze, and they freeze to all the way to 3 degrees. They become ice for like 8 months, and then after 8 months and the sun comes out and it warms up, the frog comes back to life. Okay, it's really, go look it up, a wood frog. But not all frogs can do that, you know. So, you know, I know with children, you know, they like to experiment. They like to bully animals and creatures by doing cruel experiments or throwing rocks at the dog or the cat, or, you know, I'm only telling you what I used to do. Okay, when I was growing up, that's what we used to do. You know, like a lot of times when we weren't being supervised by adults, we would pick on our pets. We would, you know, if I got mad at my mom about something, I would sit on the cat, and mom would hear the cat meow. Will you get off that cat? You know, I mean, we would do that. We would take our anger out, our frustrations out on the animals. Okay, you know, I've seen people throw rocks at their dogs. I've seen, you know, all kinds of cruel things done to pets, throwing cats up in the air, you know, see if they'll land on their feet, you know, stupid things like that. But you know what that leads to, actually? Well, the Peaceful Solution told us in the character unit, I think in chapter 1, that, you know, people that, you know, serial killers start out with lesser creatures, you know, like cats, dogs, and other animals, and they graduate to a higher species eventually, called human beings, and they start killing them. So it can lead to that, okay, is what I'm saying. Because if you don't have any respect for life, animal life, right, you can also have a disregard for human life as well. Okay, so you got to learn, you have to be educated, you have to be shown how to have respect for all life. Remember what we learned in the front of this book? It says respect even for the dead, like even for things that are dead. Okay? You don't go around robbing tombs, you know. I know they call it archaeology, you know, but I guess, you know, they got to have something to call it when they're stealing things out of people's graves. I don't know. Right? Or they're digging up someone's bones, you know, and putting them on display in a museum. You know, they got to have something to call it, you know, so they don't feel bad about their theft, I guess. Okay, so children bully pets as well. Well, is it just children bullying the pets? Let's see. Let's go to the next slide. Is it just children bullying animals? Not really. You know, look at this little calf right here, you know. This is called calf roping in rodeo, right? Calf roping. Well, look at this. Look at this. Look at this big guy here, you know, roughing up that little calf, you know. I mean, poor little calf. Look at him. He's got a rope around his neck. It's almost snapping his spine in half, right? Jerking him. And this guy's trying to rope him in less than a couple seconds, right? I mean, that doesn't hurt the calf, right? It's not hurting that calf, right? Animals don't have feelings, do they? Well, of course they do. Of course they do. I've seen elephants mourn over their little dead elephants, other dead elephants. They'll mourn over them, and they'll actually come a year later and memorialize them. They'll actually remember you if you killed one of them, and they'll attack you later if they ever see you. I mean, because they don't practice the peaceful solution. Elephants aren't being taught, right? But they will. Animals have feelings. I got to show you a video clip, man, because last week I was surfing through the news, and I saw this, and I thought, that's it. Let me see how this monkey reacted. You know how they keep monkeys and chimpanzees in cages for years under the guise of medical experiments or other experimentation? They use animals for, you know, mice and monkeys and things to experiment with. Well, the article that caught my attention, it said, chimpanzee released from cage sees the sky for the first time in 28 years. You've got to see the reaction of this little creature. You've got to see it. In fact, whoever's back there in the booth, can you play his reaction back about 3 different times for the audience? Don't play the whole video, but just show his initial reaction when he gets out and he looks up. He sees his friends, first of all, and he looks at the sky. This is like a prisoner getting out of prison. This is like a human being being released from a prison. Watch this video clip. Play that back one more time. Just play that back one more time. Watch his reaction. He gets out, he's hugging his friend, and he looks at the sky with awe, like, wow. His friends are all, man, this is, you're going to love this. I mean, animals don't have feelings? I mean, I saw that. I was really amazed by that chimpanzee's reaction, man. That was really amazing. That to me is like, that's how I probably would have reacted if I was let out of a cage, out of a prison, never seen the light of day, and I got out and I saw the blue sky for the first time. And all my friends were out there waiting. You see all those monkeys out there waiting on him? And he gave him a big hug. When he got out, he gave him a big hug. He gave his friend a hug. Those things right there just should be reminders that these creatures, they have feelings too. You know, they do have feelings. Okay, and we need to treat them with respect as well. You know, doing experiments on these creatures, like leaving them in cages, and they do some very heinous experiments. They call them experiments, but they're actually torturing these animals. They're torturing them. They're abusing the animals. They're abusing them. The animals didn't sign up to be sent into space. You know, those monkeys, they put them on rockets. Remember, they shot them up to see if they'd come back alive. You know, I mean, they didn't sign up for that. You know, and I guess the human being that decided to do that. Or what about the stupid experiment I seen him do one time, where a doctor took a monkey's head and he cut it off and he tried to sew it on another monkey just to see, you know, if he could switch heads. I mean, really? Really? Wow. How smart would you be if you could do that, right? And but what if it don't work, right? Oh, it's just a monkey. Who cares, right? The monkey didn't care, did he? Well, you know, the monkey only gets to live once. The monkey wants to enjoy life, doesn't he? I saw that one monkey that got out after 28 years. He looked pretty excited to get out of that prison. Okay, and now he's going to live out the rest of his years. Hopefully, he has a few more years left to enjoy the blue sky and the rain and his friends and the food and, you know, being free. That's why I really don't have any interest in going to the zoo, because I'm not interested in seeing animals locked up. Just so you can go and pay to see that animal locked up. I'm not interested. Personally, I'm just saying I'm not interested in it. Okay? I'm not interested in going to see another animal that's not in his own environment, okay, where he should be, just for my entertainment. Nor am I interested in going to the rodeo and watching them rough up calves and you know, in the calf roping. And I'm not interested in seeing them. Now, I would have been at one time if I hadn't been taught the peaceful solution and I hadn't known about what animal abuse actually is and how they actually abuse those animals, those trainers in circuses, in the rodeos, in the bullfighting or whatever else. It's all just animal abuse for entertainment, for sport. That's all it is. It's abusing someone weaker. It's abusing a lesser. And you know what's always amazed me about animals? They seem to have a lot of respect for humans. You know, like a dog sees you. Normally, they don't just attack you, you know. They could. They could go for your throat if they wanted to. But you know what they do? A lot of times, even when their owner is beating that dog, they don't bite them. They won't even bite them back. They'll just let them beat them. Seems like the animals have a lot of respect for the humans, right? But don't seem like a lot of humans have much care or concern for the animals, and we need to. Okay? That doesn't mean we can't eat them, or, you know, if we need to eat a cow, or, you know, something. Everybody enjoys hamburgers, but there's even a humane way to slaughter a cow, you know? Okay? So, you know, just be thinking about these things, you know, about bullying. It's not just bullying in schools, etc. It's in the workplace. It's bullying pets and animals, etc. All right. So at this point, going to go back. Let's see, 40. We're going to go back to LP5E, Lesson Plan 5E, in Step 9, because we just finished Step 8. And we're going to go into another aspect of called responding to disrespect from the opposite sex. It says in this step, we're going to tell students that the last type of disrespect that we're going to explore in this lesson is responding to disrespect from the opposite sex. Have students read the section Responding to Disrespect from the Opposite Sex found on pages 140 and 141 in their handbooks, and complete the accompanying exercise found on page 142. Stress that both males and females have an obligation to treat each other with respect by dressing appropriately and refraining from making sexual comments or jokes in each other's presence. So let's turn over to page 140. Okay, and let's go ahead and put up that next slide, responding to disrespect, for our audience that's out there that might not have a book. And by the way, I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the broadcast tonight, if you don't have a teacher's manual, if you don't have the manual, if you're watching on Facebook, you can go to the top of the Facebook page and you can download any of these manuals. Right now we're in the Respect Manual, which is the third, let's see. Hold on. Fourth? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. Fourth manual in the series. We still have another one after this. It's called Responsibility. But we have, you go ahead and download that manual. It's free of charge, and follow along in your book with us, okay? All right, so on page, let's see, 140, responding to disrespect. Go ahead and put up the slide. We got it up. Okay, so it says, disrespect can occur with people you may or may not know well. Although there are many forms of disrespect, the one we will focus on next involves how to respond appropriately to disrespect from the opposite sex. Well, let's face it, we live in a society where sex is openly talked about and displayed in all forms of media, such as television, songs, movies, and magazines. Now, can I ask you a question? Just because society thinks it's normal to be talking about this openly, does that make it moral? No, it doesn't. It just means it's accepted by many members of our society, but it's not normal to be discussing these things openly the way they do. Okay? Just because society promotes it doesn't mean it's moral. That's what you have to understand about moral character. Just because the U.S. Supreme Court says abortion is legal doesn't mean it's moral. And I know now, I think they've ruled against it, right? They said now women don't have a constitutional right to abortion. After 1973's decision, the Roe versus Wade, I think it was last year they overturned it. But they still allow abortions. They didn't go further by telling states they couldn't do it. They said, well, the states need to make the choice. In other words, we're not going to be responsible here. We're going to wash our hands of all the millions of babies we murdered here, and we're going to allow the states to choose whether they want to murder them or not. Yes, I said murder. I'm sorry. There's nothing else to call it, you know. Like that little monkey that was kept in that cage for 28 years against its own will, that baby that's being mutilated by whatever source of, hold on, somebody doesn't know I'm in class. Hey, are you watching class right now? I'm teaching class. I'll have to call you back, okay? Sorry for the interruption. The Supreme Court has left it up to the states now, you know, but they could have said, you know what? It should never be allowed. That's what they should have said, okay? But they didn't have the moral fortitude to say so, you know. So now the states, could you believe there's some states that are actually promoting, look, come to our state and get an abortion. If you come to our state and get an abortion, we'll pay for your hotel, your airfare, your abortion, everything. It's like, now what would be the motivating factor in that? I mean, it can't possibly be money making unless they're just thinking if they bring more tourists to their state, you know, to get an abortion, you know, they'll spend money while they're in the community or whatever. But it just seems really odd that they want to kill a baby that bad. Okay, it seems really odd to me that they want to murder that baby that bad. Okay, and yeah, many of them don't look at it as murder because they haven't been taught moral character yet, so they don't understand. They're being taught that, no, it's not murder because we gave you permission. Okay? So therefore it's not murder. But that's not what the peaceful solution teaches. Okay? Moral means you don't bring harm to yourself, your neighbor, or anything. Okay? Including that baby that doesn't have the right to speak up and say, hey, I'm not really wanting to be aborted here, you know? Can you let me live? What occurred to the rights of the child, the unborn child? They have rights too, don't they? Everyone has the right to live in peace, safety, and security. That's what the peaceful solution says. It says everybody does. Now, what's really odd about that is if a woman was pregnant and a man came up and punched her right in the stomach and killed that baby, Do you know what they would charge him with? They would charge him with murder, first degree. And they would charge him for assaulting the woman as well, if she didn't die. Isn't that odd? So they know it's murder. They just think, well, we have a license to kill. You know, we have a license to do this. We're allowing you to do this, so therefore it's moral because we said you can do it. No, you saying I can do it does not make it any more moral, okay? It doesn't make it moral. Bringing harm to your neighbor, to property, to yourself, is never moral. It never will be. So there won't be any moral wars. There won't be any moral abortions. There won't be any moral stealing going on. There won't be any moral, anything that's immoral can never be moral. As much as you try to turn this world upside down, and much as they have, it will never be that way in the peaceful solution. The peaceful solution will always turn things right side up. Okay, everything that they've flipped about, they've flipped it over and made it the opposite. The peaceful solution, we're going to restore it back to where it was in the minds of the people, okay, to show them that no, it's not right to be doing these things. So it says, with information about sex literally bombarding you from all directions, often sending out mixed messages, it can be difficult to tell the difference between respectful and disrespectful interactions between males and females. And that's where the peaceful solution has to set the record straight so we can understand, you know, what we should, what's proper behavior with the opposite sex, okay? Let's set the record straight. It says making sexual comments or jokes in the presence of someone of the opposite sex is disrespectful. In addition to this, making comments that bring attention to someone's physical development is not only disrespectful, but can also be humiliating and embarrassing. The physical development of each person, whether male or female, is part of the natural process of becoming an adult and should not be discussed as if it were the weather. Each person's body is private and must be treated with respect. And let's remind ourselves, what is respect? Let's go back to the front of the book, okay, the front of the respect book. The respect in this unit of the peaceful solution, what we want to see is the definition of respect in this particular unit. And it's on page 3, the value of respect. Second paragraph, in this unit of the peaceful solution, we're going to learn how to develop the positive character trait of respect. And in this unit, respect means to recognize the value of people and things and to treat them with consideration, care, and concern. In other words, how would I want to be treated in that situation? Okay, so it says, girls, if there's a boy in your class who makes sexually inappropriate comments or jokes in your presence, he's disrespecting you. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Remember the old commercials? No ifs, ands, or buts. Shoplifting is stealing. You know? Well, no ifs, ands, or buts. If someone's telling a sexual joke in the presence of the opposite gender, it's disrespect. I don't care how funny they are or how close of friends you are or how close of friends you think you are. That's disrespectful. It's not right. If you're dressing in a way to attract his attention or sending out messages that are sexually inappropriate, then you are disrespecting yourself. Let's put up that next slide because I think I have I think there's a, oh wait. Well, no, go down, let's see, I guess I don't have the, what occurred to that slide? Oh, there it is. Go down like 3 slides. There's a girl dressed kind of like a floozy. Dressed really loosely there. Go down, go down, go down, go down a couple more. Okay, right there. It says, in fact, that's what we just read. I was supposed to have that slide up when we were reading this, but this girl that you see right here in this slide, you know, see she's wearing the Daisy Dukes, they call them, and the, you know, the halter top, you know, short shirt, not covering her all of herself. that's disrespectful. Okay, that's not appropriate dress. She's wearing very tight clothing. It's clothing that's made to attract the attention of the boy, to provoke, or it's provocative. It's meant to provoke certain emotions in a person, in a male, in a man. And men do the same thing. You know, they wear the shirt unbuttoned, you know, open, you know, showing their sometimes hairy chest, sometimes it's not so hairy or whatever, but they're showing their, you know, their skin. You know, it's not appropriate. You know, it's not appropriate to do in public, okay? And some people don't even wear shirts, you know, in public. If you notice, they'll walk into a store with no shirt on. And, you know, many times there's rules against it in stores where they say no shirt, no service. Some people, nudists, will walk into a store with no clothes on, you know? I mean, it does occur. You know, there are people that actually think that these things are okay. So we've got to understand through education that no, it's not okay. We got to set the record straight. It's not appropriate. And I'm going to be out of time. I'm not really going to be able to finish this right now, but I want us to be thinking this is where we're going to leave off for tonight. We're going to be picking back up on this about this responding to disrespect from the opposite sex, so we can set the record straight and we can keep things appropriate. We can keep things on the level, keep things according to the peaceful solution with the moral behavior between the boys and the girls, the men and the women, etc. So at this time, I need to tell you that on 7/12/2023 at 5:30 p.m. will be our next class, 5:30 p.m. Central Time on 7/12/2023, which is Wednesday. And we all hope you'll join us again. We had a great class with you tonight. Keep coming. The Peaceful Solution is the greatest program ever. Have a great evening.